Right. Hello, everybody. My name is Tabitha, and this is the African PhD Spotlight. And today on the Spotlight is Dr. Titus Opeyemi, and he's a senior lecturer from Nottingham Trent University, a senior lecturer in human resource management. Translate, please. Welcome, Dr. Titus, to the Spotlight. We are so very pleased to have you today. So welcome.
It's a great honor. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thanks so much, Tabitha. Yeah.
Okay, good. So the first question is, we want you to share with us a bit about your PhD journey. Why did you decide to pursue a PhD? Is it something that you had always wanted to do? And why the field of human resources? How did that all come about?
Well, thank you very much, Tabitha. I would say it's a great honor to be on your platform. I must say, share my doctoral journey, my PhD journey with you, and not just you, with as many people that will be watching this, maybe by rebroadcast or listening to this at some point. I would say that I'd always wanted to do a PhD, by the way. Taking that memory lane many years ago, came down to the UK for my master's degree. And when I came around for the master's degree, I rounded off my master's degree in human resource management. And then I was just asking myself, is it time for me to, what next? Not sure exactly when I was going to start the PhD. But immediately I finished my master's, and then came the opportunity saying, okay, should I return back to Nigeria because I was working in Nigeria before coming down to the UK. And then afterwards, I just said, okay, I think this is the time for me to do the PhD. And then I've always had this person who taught me during my master's degree. She was brilliant when it came to leadership. And then she kind of inspired me, and I mentioned to her, I used to do a PhD and in human resource management, specifically in particular about leadership and all of that. And I said, I'm very much happy to supervise you. And that was how it started.
So for someone who is wondering what a PhD in human resources look like, or what it is like, I want you to explain to us in layman's language, what is a PhD in human resource management all about? Developing
responsible leadership within the context of the Nigerian banking industry. As far as Nigeria is concerned, for those of you who are particular about not just Nigeria, but when it comes to European economies, we always, there's this issue around leadership problems, and I was very keen about. My father used to work in the bank for many years till he retired. And we used to have a chat about the Nigerian bank. I never worked in the bank, by the way. And he used to tell me some of the issues they were having and all of that. And that kind of stirred up my curiosity to wanting to investigate on the concept of relational, should I say, responsible leadership, which is under the umbrella of relational leadership. And then, so there was this, it was about giving back to the economy, doing a research that would contribute to where I was coming from, which is Nigeria as a whole. And that kind of stirred up that ongoing conversation. But again, I didn't really have the research, should I use the word, I knew what I wanted to do, but the question was I needed to be able to put a structure around it, hence the reason why I needed a supervisor who could make sense out of what was going on in my heart, and then they were there to be able to guide me. So, okay, Titus, I didn't even know what the topic was going to be. I just shared the idea, and then we came around, okay, the topic would be this, and there were a lot of back and forth. This was, and kind of bringing me into the spotlight of what making a problem statement out of it, and having to put let's use the word structure around it and all of that. And that was how I came about starting my PhD, address the gap within the leadership gap as far as Nigerian banking industry was concerned.
Right. Thomas, so what was your biggest challenge when you were doing your PhD? Was there ever a chance where you felt like quitting? Where did you struggle the most?
Now, I'm going to say this to you. Now, there were times I felt like quitting, but before I go into times when I felt like quitting, I would say that my story was just, I know, Tabitha, you also from Kenya. And when you look at how much it costs, you're going to convert the currency to the British, to the pounds, it takes a lot. Now, let me just give you a background. When I came, the year, I'm talking about some 7 years ago now. the amount of money it will cost me to come and do just a master's degree in the UK was equal to buying a 3-bedroom house where I was coming from. So I was caught in between. Should I come and study, or should I own a beautiful 3-bedroom house somewhere? So, but for me, it was an investment. I've always loved academics. I've always loved reading. And where I was working those days, about 60% of my salary would go into studying. Going into investment, development, self-development. I was doing, coming to the UK was just, another master's after. It was just about development. So I decided to just say to myself, rather you put that money into developing yourself. So I took on a challenge, came into the UK, spent an amount of money. So it was quite expensive. It was really, really expensive for me. But again, I took up that challenge to make sure I took that as what I wanted to do, for as far as the future was concerned. Mm-hmm. And then imagine after finishing my master's degree, now proceeding into a PhD that will last for 4 years. And imagine how many 3-bedroom houses I would have owned, because I had to be paying £50,000 every single year. So it was quite expensive. So it was quite challenging. Some people just felt, Titus, you must be very stupid coming to spend that amount of money, in the United Kingdom. So it was quite a bit of challenge for me.
And you were self-sponsored, right?
I was self-sponsored. Come on, any person you see coming to the UK as a self-sponsored student, come on, you need to come on. And your work, I'll send my work to my supervisors, and you get it. You by the time they go through the work and they look at the work, say Titus, you need to go and adjust XYZ. Sometimes I send the work 4 or 5 times, and it felt like, what's going on? We corrected this. Why are you still making the same mistake? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And it taught me, and I learned through the whole process. There was a lot of things I was learning. It was a redefining moment for my life, sincerely speaking. I was blessed with 2 supervisors then. One was very thorough in the sense that, say it the way it is. The other one was very motherly. So when the other one gives me back and front, very critical in approach, the other one will just give me a pillow to comfort myself. So it was more, I needed both, to be fair, because no one does it. PhD is not the bed of roses. If all I had was someone to just pat my back, I would not learn. You get it? But at the same time, if all I received was if the reviews were just too critical, and I probably would have given up at some point. So there were days when I felt like, I'm doing the right thing. I love my PhD, and I'm enjoying what I'm writing. There were days where I just felt like, what are you even doing? Somebody asked me at some point, and said, what's your research about? Sometimes you just don't even know what you're doing again. You just feel, because when you meet a lot of very critical, and then you go to conferences again, and then they just say, why didn't you use that approach? Why did you use this approach? You have to. So I found myself in a world of a critical world, and maybe kind of there was something that was birthed on my inside. To be fair, maybe now I have a critical lens to viewing the world as a whole, which I would say is a blessing, to be fair. But it was really, really challenging. But I'm grateful I overcame. I was really blessed. I know maybe that might be one of the questions you asked, but we'll go into all of that. But those were some of the challenges which I had, in those times. Yeah.
So adjusting to a new culture, taking on critical feedback and improving on the work, a lot of iterations in writing, which can make you feel like giving up. That's a real challenge, honestly. It cuts across most PhD students, and I'm really glad that you shared that.
Thank you.
Right. So let's move on to the brighter side of things.
Yeah.
So what was your highlight during your PhD journey?
Yeah, now, let me say this. I come from a part of Nigeria where the Yoruba-speaking part of Nigeria, where there is this pride when your children, has many qualifications.
Yeah.
This is my 7th degree I'm having now. 7th.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
7th degree.
7th degree. And there's this joy, when your parents just feel like, son has got a doctorate, he's got an honorary doctorate, he's got this, he's got that. There is always this joy, and you kind of, maybe at the village circle, they can say, oh, that's my son, he's a doctor, he's doing. So, there was this pride, not pride, but maybe let's use the word kind of joy.
It's a moment of joy.
A moment of joy, literally. And I was kind of happy that my parents, my siblings were very happy I was doing a PhD. And I would say, especially coming from Nigeria and finding myself in England, having to do this, and actually understanding the cost implication. If you know what I mean? I come from a very humble background. So it was a moment of pride for my parents. I would say, very. I mean, they were just so grateful, and not just them alone. Those around me, where I come from, everyone is just so happy. Titus is doing the PhD, making us proud. My younger sister said something to me a while ago. Said, "You're really making us proud," and it was kind of a joy, and that kept me going during my time of my PhD. Kept me really going. Because everyone was expecting that he was going to finish one day, my elder brother, everyone was just so excited I was doing this, and that was joy for me. Number two, which was during my PhD, was when I got married. You see, it was a big joy for me as well, having that support system. Because when I came in to do my master's, I was single then, and there was a lot of, should I use the word, trying times when you're just alone, no pillow to lean on. When I use pillow,
no support.
No support system like that. I mean, families were there, but again, when you have someone to call a partner to, he just always remind you that don't worry, whatever it is going through, you'll be fine, X, Y, Z, and all of that. It was joy to me, and I remember when I was writing my acknowledgement, when I was acknowledging people that supported me, and I was putting my wife's name and my daughter's name. Right,
now to the final question.
Yes.
So, any advice for current PhD students who are probably doing a PhD, in the mix of it, struggling or enjoying, at whatever stage they're at? Any advice, a piece of advice that you have for them? And also, any piece of advice that you have for potential PhD students, people who are considering doing a PhD?
Let's start with the current students, people who are currently doing a PhD, and the first advice I would give to them is don't give up. You would always, everyone I've always interviewed or spoken to who started a PhD, there are always times of giving up, sincerely speaking, times when you just feel like, just calling it quit. I've had colleagues who, one way or the other, they just couldn't proceed with the PhD, and that's because of the pressure. We must acknowledge that there is a pressure that comes along with the PhD, and you need that resilience to be able to make it worthwhile. And should I say, rounding off the PhD, it takes a lot from you, emotionally, psychologically, financially. There is a lot, especially as an international student. I can relate in that capacity. I'm not saying local students don't have their challenges. I'm just trying to balance it. I came in as an international student, so I can relate with some of the peculiar challenges that comes when you are within that space. Don't give up. There'll be times of you want to give up during the PhD, but just keep pushing. And I say to people, if you want to pick up a PhD, question is, why do you want to pick up a PhD? Because if you know exactly why you want to pick up a PhD, that will keep you going. I tell people, look for a topic that you will be happy to do, a topic that will stimulate you, a topic that every day, anytime you wake up, anytime you don't even feel like doing, research, writing about it, you kind of like it, you like the space, because it's 4 years long journey. If you don't like it, if you don't like what you're doing, it's just a waste of time. You finish your PhD and you might end up doing something, jumping into a different field, because your PhD was never even interested in the first place. You just did it maybe out of, or maybe because of there was a sponsorship for it, and you just needed to do something, and you don't even, you're not enjoying the journey. So what I would say is just keep going. We all have our trying times as far as our PhD is concerned. Second advice is, apart from your supervisors, look for support system around as well. I made that mistake during my time. I was only receiving feedback from my supervisors. I was an academic. I think I said this during the conference. I was an academic, but there were people around me that I could have, reached out to, which I never did that, not until when I got into my fourth year in my PhD. And that was when I started. I just said to myself, Titus, you've got professors, you've got senior lecturers that are all around you. Why can't you just use them? Why can't they just help you? Or why can't you just show them let them give you honest feedback? Because sometimes 2 + 2 = 4. But sometimes 2 + 2, you might still think 2 + 2 is now 5, is no longer 4. In other words, you need someone to just help you, to remind you, to show you that, to just remind you or to assist you within that space. There were certain times my supervisors would give me certain feedback, and I was still not able to comprehend. They were expecting me to understand it, but I still was not able to comprehend. But when I had come across friends who were colleagues who could explain it to me, break it down. There is always a level of knowledge. I mean, someone could be talking to you at this level, expecting you to understand it, and you might just be here as far as learning is concerned. And jokingly, some people just say, "Oh, epistemology. What's your ontological? What's your ontology, or what's your epistemological stance?" Sorry, excuse me. What did you just say? Did you say what is epistemology? What is social constructionism? What is positivism? Sometimes these words can just get lost within that space. All of this quantity, it can be a lot sometimes to people. Sometimes I call it academic jargon. So you just need to learn to, so sometimes you just need someone to break it down for you. And in those space and in those times, so I tried to reach out to people who could explain it to me in the language I could understand.
Yes.
And when I reached out to someone I can't forget, a very good friend of mine, he mentioned something to me. What was taking me months for me to understand. He explained my thesis that I thought I knew. He explained my findings to me, within the space of 30 minutes to an hour. He was able to break it down. I was looking at my findings from when I was, for example, when I talked about leadership, for example, there were some of the things in my findings when I captured it as negative. Looking at leadership, it was more like a downside. But when the guy opened my eyes to it, he said to me, Titus, this is not a downside. This is actually a positive. So, for example, I'll give you a clue what I'm trying to say. Now, in the UK, for example, you're not permitted to, as lecturers, for example, you're not permitted to, what we call bribery in Africa. We say XYZ person was. But, let me say this. Within the context of Africa, I mean, some of the things we call bribery, Nigeria, the UK is a very individualistic environment. So I'm trying to explain what my research is so that you understand what I'm trying to say. The UK, Nigeria, for example, or should I say Africa, we are more communal. For example, if I make my salary today, my salary is not just my salary. I still have father, daddy, I have to send money to, I have uncle. We are very communal. Someone can come to my house without even getting his coming and just show up, my brother, and just show up in my house. And I say, where are you going to sleep? And he says, I will sleep in your living room. That's my brother for you. In the UK here, it's quite different. Now, in other words, in Africa, there is this understanding where people are able to, your money is our money. In the UK, my money is my money. Now, so sometimes I'm trying to explain something. So when I was doing my research, when I saw what people call responsible leadership, some people felt it more like, our boss would take us out for a meal, he would do this, he would do that, he would give my sibling money, he would do this. Those were some of the perception of how people perceive a responsible leader to be. But in the context in the Western world, it was a different perception to developing to responsible leadership. In fact, some people would frown at some of those things and no, you can't do that. Why would you expect a claim on people's monies and all of that? But the context were quite different. And so I was looking at it, I was trying to use a Western model to be able to explain a developer what was happening within a developing economy. But it was not giving that, it was not giving the narrative. So this this African scholar of mine, a colleague, now said to me, Titus, no, there's something wrong in your analysis here. This is not bad. This is who they say a responsible leader is. Yes. And we need to explain this is what it's saying. Even if in the Western world is a different perception, for look at the brighter side of it. When he analyzed my thesis and the findings for me, my goodness, it felt more like, oh my goodness, there was actually a lot of interesting papers that will actually come out of these findings. And what am I trying to say in essence is that the whole idea of bringing about these stories is that don't do your PhD in isolation. Explore resources. Let people contribute to. Let them expound what you found, what your findings are. Be very open to people's new ideas, opinions, and it makes your work rich. The more the better, the more the merrier, and rather otherwise you'll be very narrow-minded with your PhD. One thing about a thesis is that the more you look at your work, the more you don't see. Maybe it's two-sided to it. Some people say, the more you look, the more you see. But I believe strongly that the more, if it's your work, the more you look at it, the more you don't see, because you are so immersed in that data that you're blinded by it, because you gathered the data, you spoke with the people, you interviewed the participants, you gathered the data, you analyzed it yourself, you did all. So there is something going on in your mind. There is a perception. There is a subconscious bias going on. You can't see it. But sometimes you just need the extra eye to come and look at your work to say, oh no, Titus, I think there is A, B, C that you are not factoring into this. And then they bring in that new that perspective to it. And that's why I say to people, do well to explore. Let people also come. Let them look at your work. Don't just be you, just me, my supervisor, and I. That might work for some people, but I'm just trying to explain some of my journey with you. Some of the things I would say.
I shared, just to piggyback on what you're saying, I shared briefly at the conference, the same experience. I had exactly what you have said. My thesis I shared with a colleague. Big shout out to Sami, by the way, if you're listening. Thank you so much. Big ups, brother. He had a PhD in education. He was not even from my subject area. He read every chapter of analysis in my thesis. The structure and the skeleton, and I would meet him and explain to him what I'm trying to do in that chapter. And he would tell me if it makes sense or if it doesn't make sense. So being open to receiving feedback, not just from the supervisor, but also from people outside your field. Because I think there's one time I heard, if your PhD can make sense to a 6-year-old, then you have a PhD. So it brings in more richness, variety of perspective when you share it and receive feedback from other people. So I completely agree with you. I just wanted to jump in and say yes, that is so true.
Yes, good. Since you already started with a shout out, let me just use a shout out to someone who was two people actually who were very, very helpful. Dennis Peppel, he's an associate professor at the University of Leicester. He looked at my work and was able to bring the brighter side of the findings. I must mention that. And of course, like someone which you've interviewed on this panel, Professor Christian Harrison.
Drums roll for him. Amazing
lovely
professor.
Guy, amazing guy. He, at some point, he was able to assist on all of that. To look at my work at some point. I think that was before my Bible or so. So these are guys that I need to make reference to, and also maybe finally on that as well, for those aspiring to do a PhD and they're not even sure how to go about it. And I will say this: if, for example, I've met a lot of guys that want to come abroad and they want to do a PhD, but they're not even sure about how to proceed with it. And what I would say to you is that I know finance can be a big issue, especially if you're coming from Kenya, Ghana, I mean, any African country, it can be very, very challenging. But there are lots of opportunities out there as well, which can be explored. There are loads of funding bodies that can actually fund want to come and do a PhD here as well. Maybe this might be by extension. I would say don't give up. Just keep the vision alive. If the plan is to come and do a PhD abroad, just keep the hope alive. Opportunities will come. Keep out. What I say to people is go to pick out, if there are 200 universities in the UK, pick out 50 or 100 universities, go to their website and keep looking. You would find an opportunity. Is that you find a partly funded PhD, or you could find it fully funded. But the thing is that a lot of us just wait for when it comes out on jobs.ac.uk. Some of them just display it on their website. Some opportunities are even actually there for those coming from African developing economies. And like when I did my master's, there was a £3,500 off the tuition fee just for those coming from developing economies. So go to university's website, just check, just do your research. Don't just leave it to some agent to do for you. Do your research and reach out as well. If there's someone in the field that is maybe a mentor, someone you can reach out through LinkedIn, reach out to people. Some people are just recruiting. You just need someone. So there are people who have funding who just need someone to take it up on board.
Yes,
exactly. And so just reach out, just send email, just look out for someone. I mean, maybe people who maybe just say, because maybe I'm not in the UK, or I'm not. I mean, maybe they will say no. Just reach out first. Email. Many years ago, I got a PhD offer in other universities. I remember there was a particular university, I don't want to mention the name, which I was hoping to do a PhD there, and I reached out to a potential supervisor, and I found the details on LinkedIn, and someone told me about the guy. So I found and I found some of the interesting papers lovely papers the guy wrote about something around leadership, or was looking at a very niche, or should I say very unique area of leadership. And what I did was read the guy's paper and kind of stimulated an interest in me. So I emailed the guy, and this was me sending email to the guy saying, I read your paper, article XYZ, quite a lovely piece, I'm actually looking for someone, a potential supervisor. I don't know whether because I just framed the research topic around what the guy had done, and that alone stimulated a conversation, you see. And that's how you need to approach these people. You need to find their research interest and just draw some what's it called? Just connect with all the papers they've written. When you show interest in my work, I really want to meet you because you've shown interest in what I do. So that's how you stir up a conversation. And then before you know what's happening, the person can even tell you, by the way, did you say you're about to do a PhD? I know of this funding happening in XYZ. I could speak to someone about this, blah, blah, blah. And that's how a lot of people get fundings, just reaching out. And there are lots of opportunities out there. But if you don't reach out first, it wouldn't just drop on your laps. So you must take that conscious effort to reach out to people. Maximize LinkedIn. Go on LinkedIn. Look for people in the industry who are making waves within that space. Reach out to them. Send them an email. Interesting piece. Your paper. I love it. Blah, blah, blah. And see how the conversation goes. Before you know what's happening, you'll find yourself doing a PhD.
Yes. So sometimes you walk through open doors, and sometimes you knock at those doors, and Absolutely. You don't know which one opens up.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much, Titus. Your experience, it's always fascinating hearing you talk about your PhD journey. It's so inspiring. I really wish I had kind of these tips when I was doing my PhD. Maybe the journey would have been much more smoother. But that's why we are here to share some of these experiences and to inspire the upcoming emerging scholars and the generation behind us to know there's an easier way or there's a manageable way, and to learn from our experiences. So thank you so much for for honoring this invitation. Right, so keep it right here for APS Spotlight. We're bringing you more highlights from African PhDs. Thank you so much, and we meet on the next Spotlight.